So this is kind of like a reunion because I've been out of town so much. I haven't seen most of the people in this room very often. Everybody knows kind of a bit about my background. I consider myself today to be a recovering chief information officer. The greatest part about recovery is the fact that you can reflect on your past and you can identify the things that you would have done differently if you had that experience today. And I'm in a state of transition in the state of recovery, so I'm doing a lot of running. I missed a kayak fishing tournament today, so anybody that is on Facebook knows how much that hurts me, but I'm here to help the community continue to grow and better understand the world of cloud computing. And I became an advocate of cloud computing through my role as a chief information officer, but even before that, as being a software developer within the community. And the reality is that businesses and individuals that take advantage of cloud-based services have the ability to be able to really drive agility, growth within their company, innovation, and the big challenge today is that there's two aspects of cloud-based services. One that's for organizations that are very large, that are looking to make a transformation, and for companies that are starting up. And that's what I'm going to walk through today, is a little bit of the difference between those environments. And for the past 2 years, I've served as the Enterprise CIO Advisor for Amazon Web Services. So what does this mean? It means I literally lived on an airplane 4 days out of the week, would go and visit with Fortune 500 Chief Information Officers. So I'm talking about companies like DirecTV, Kaiser Permanente, all the companies we would love to have headquartered here in Lafayette, Louisiana, or even in the state of Louisiana, that are not. And these enterprise companies that are multi-billion-dollar operations, on them making a transformation from a traditional way of doing and managing information technology systems and to leveraging cloud-based services through Amazon Web Services or through Google or through Microsoft, whatever the solution out there, to make that transformation into this new paradigm. And the reality is that today there's such a huge opportunity, and the opportunity is for information technology and the information technology professionals not to think about being their own little island of IT geeks, nerds, whatever, that sit inside the data center operation, programming code, not communicating with the core principles and mission of the organization, but to focus primarily on making a transition on where they bring value and where they bring innovation into a company from a leadership perspective. So, if we look at the history of cloud computing, which first and foremost, I hate the term, okay? The reason is because it's a marketing term. And the history of compute power started back in the 50s with mainframe computers and dummy terminals, transitioned all the way to the ARPANET in the 60s. We have the dot-coms of the 80s. And then the 90s, the actual term of cloud computing came about in 1997. The first time that I heard it was probably in 2005, 2006 by Mark Benioff. And the reality is that it's describing a series of solutions that are known as software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. I'm going to break each one of these things down in non-technical related terms. The value that comes into play here, though, in this transition is that the jobs that have been being created from these environments are absolutely tremendous out there. And in the 90s, when I first started my first company, the term cloud computing wasn't being utilized. Software as a service wasn't being utilized. It was known as application service providers. All right, it was known as timeshare even before that. Jared Gregg was here and we talked about his gray hair. That's how he would refer to it. So for everybody inside of this room, there's probably a different definition for cloud. I'm going to pick on Linda. So what's your definition of cloud?
Services that are delivered from a remote.
From a remote computer?
I'll take that definition, yeah.
Remote computer? Anybody else?
Yeah.
Joe? What about private cloud?
Mobile access to data.
Mobile access to data, okay? So if you get a room of 50 CIOs together and you ask that question, everyone will have a different answer. That's good. Because we've put in terms such as private cloud, public cloud, on-premise, software servers, platform as service environments. And what really comes down to is it's broken down for me into 3 major categories, and it's software service, platform service, and infrastructure service. So when you hear SaaS, what you're hearing about applications or workload that is built on some type of technology that is being managed, such as a utility company would provide you internet services. So great examples of those are Workday, which is a human resource application. When you license the Workday product, you have a username, a password, you're able to configure the files. You do not install any software on your local network, on your local computer. The same way that you would access your Google email accounts. So if you're running a personal email for Yahoo or Google, or even inside of your business as Google Apps or Microsoft Office 365 today, all of these fall into the category of software service. And you have the innovative companies out here, Dropbox, so that now, today, you have file systems where you upload a file into the Dropbox, and then you can share that information with everybody in your network, those that are within your company and those that are outside of your company. Each one of the software service companies have really had a strong footprint in a consumer-based model, but then have migrated over into providing business-based services. So, example with Dropbox, any one of us can go sign up for a free account today, but as a business, you can subscribe to their services, Dropbox for Business, and be able to have the security models of saying who has access to files, who doesn't have access to files, the encryption for patient health information, those type of things. But in short, the software service environment is really designed to just be an application that lives out there that is a zero footprint install of software on your local based computers. So as you move forward, and what you'll see is you'll see redundancy on names here. So Salesforce.com being an example. With Salesforce.com being a platform as a service, what happens is you're able, a developer, a person that's got more technical skills, is able to take the applications or that technology that they have inside of their environment, inside of Salesforce.com's environment, known as Force.com, and build an application for a company. So Linda Larkin could take Salesforce.com and build an attorney-specific application for Gary McGoffin in his law firm. And the value that comes into play here is that there's a standard set of code and language that's living in a multi-tenant environment. It's got all the proper security that's tied to it, and it's also one that can now, that developer can take that product that was developed on that platform as a service and resell it to all of the attorneys through a marketplace environment. So Google has this, Microsoft has this, Salesforce has this, and the real value that comes into the platform as service is it is giving an application developer the opportunity to be able to focus on innovation instead of having to manage the CPU, the electrical, the power, everything that comes into the actual computer itself. They're just taking machine language and creating with that solutions that can be deployed, and essentially platform as service is utilized to create software service solutions. That make sense? Now then, when you get into the infrastructure as a service environment, and you're looking at companies such as, we already discussed, Amazon Web Services or Rackspace, Microsoft Azure, this is the fastest growing market that's out there today. And what this is it's consolidating all these data centers that have been created out there where a company would take and buy, let's say, 5 racks of computers, and they would have to manage all the electrical power going into them, all of the internet going into them, and then they would have to be able to, they would have to upgrade that hardware based off of when that equipment depreciates or when it becomes obsolete. The Amazons and Rackspaces of the world, primarily driven by Amazon, who's the forefront driver of this, has gone out and said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put in millions and millions of compute power all around the world. And the customers will then come and utilize our compute power on demand. So where it really stemmed from was, if you think about a retail store, when's the busiest time of year for a retail store?
Holidays.
Holidays, Christmas holidays, right? So if you're in a traditional model of, I'm a CIO and I'm providing infrastructure for Target, and before cloud computing existed, what would I have to do? And I had online sales. I would have to buy enough servers in January to make sure that when December rolled around or November rolled around, that when all of those orders came in, that I would be able to have enough available utilities or enough compute power for those individuals, the consumers, to buy services for me, right? If I don't, then what's going to happen? People are going to get errors on their pages, they're not going to get their orders through, we're going to lose sales that come into play. So what Amazon and Google and Microsoft have all been out there doing is saying, don't worry about the hardware layer anymore. We'll take care of that, and we will overbuild the capacity to deal with when the peaks and troughs happen. So what's taken place is companies like Bristol Myers Squibb are doing clinical trial information, and or clinical trials, I shouldn't say clinical trials. They will do, when they're doing a clinical trial, the data scientists need literally thousands and thousands of compute cycles. And what they end up doing is contracting with a company such as this. They buy it at a low cost, and today they're able to take what used to take them 5 years to do and over $10 million and do in less than 1 day. And I'm talking about the actual compute, the analysts work in less than $200,000. That's great because of financial savings for the company, but more importantly, what they've also done is, this particular case was one that affected kids, and the kids that were having to have blood draws and have to have medication administered and have the side effects and things like that, they were able to take a drug that would have taken them 10 years to typically take to market. They were able to take it to market within 2 years. So that impact was on the kids and advancing the healthcare cycles that are out there. The other part of infrastructure as a service is, most people think about this as, let me just take a data center and I'll take all of my servers that are sitting inside this data center and I'll just put them on Amazon Web Services and I'll get a cost reduction. You actually do not get a cost reduction. If you were to move it to Microsoft, you wouldn't get a cost reduction. How you get a cost reduction is by automating the processes. So going back to the retail model, let's take Oprah Winfrey, right? I'll pick on Gary again just because he's there. Gary just wrote a book. Oprah Winfrey, he doesn't know anything about this. Oprah Winfrey features his book inside of her book club, and all of a sudden he needs that ability to be able to meet the demand of literally thousands of users going to buy his book on his own private site. He's running on an Amazon Web Services and automates the scripts. As soon as his server hits all of the compute capacity, there'd be a script that says, hey, turn on another server. Don't hire this guy to go and start up another server for me. It's just turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. So what happens is it's called elastic scaling. So it's able to scale up, and then as soon as there's no more transactions that are taking place or decreased transactions, then it starts to scale down. The beauty of this is the way that you're charged is like a utility. So you're only paying for the services that you are utilizing. Now, that's without getting into the pre-negotiated contracts that I'll use X number and 3-year contracts and those type of environments. But the beauty of this is that today's small businesses, so I referenced Dropbox earlier today, right? Those companies are able to be more innovative and leverage companies such as this to take their products to the market because they're able to focus on the application and delivering value for the consumers that are out there. So if you were starting a business today, I don't know any small business today that would say, I need to go buy a server and put it inside of a data closet, get it configured, run my own email system that's out there. If you are, I'm going to tell you, if I'm in a meeting with you, you're making a huge mistake. Leverage Office 365, Office Google Mail, those type of environments. Now what's that mean for all of the people that manage and integrate and maintain all of those services? They still have an opportunity to be able to leverage these environments and provide those services to their customers. The problem that comes in for the traditional resellers of those on-premise environments are your margin that may have been $1,000 went to $10. So now you're having to manage more customers that are with it. And that's why a lot of companies are having a hard time making a transition. So for me, where we're at in this state of flux as it relates to a paradigm shift taking place between traditional computing and cloud-based computing is that in business it's being debated. So you have one CIO or one IT director or one infrastructure manager, you have another consultant over here, you have another contract person over here, and what happens is they all get in a room and they start debating whether or not this is the right solution for the company. What they're debating is they're debating the technology layer. They're saying, I can do this with this, I've got experience on this, I haven't made a change with that, I've never done that before, so that's a scary tactic, you know, for a company to embrace that change. The reality, though, is that the leaders of organizations today need to be focused on how does technology align within the business? So, Jeffrey, you were talking earlier today, visionary, the second one was integrator, right? The integrator that was with it. You have businesses that started up 10, 15 years ago that they probably spend close to 45% of their time today debating technology and trying to get technology to work for them. It's working against them. And when they talk to the consultants, the IT professionals, it's all about, it becomes a very technical conversation as opposed to, I love what you said about the alignment of what can we do with this? Am I in the right position with this? Is it delivering the right value for the organization? And the IT leaders today have no paradigm shift has come into play because in the past it was all about hardware, customizing everything, departmental type of solutions. Today we're going through this mobility environment where who in the room does not have a smartphone? Well, let me ask the question. Yeah, I'll embarrass somebody. Who in this room doesn't have a smartphone? Okay, good. There we go. I'm not embarrassing anybody. Then what's coming into play now is where this role of information technology is less and less of a specialty. Why? Because the kids graduating high school today, the only thing they have known is technology. How to configure it, how to maintain it, how to manage it themselves. And we, as IT professionals, and I'm including myself in this category, not everybody inside of this room though, is that we're kind of scared, what's that mean for our jobs, right? Truly. So what we have to do is we have to be able to empower more of the end users inside of our enterprise, recognize that they have the skills to be able to manage and configure and maintain their data, give them the tools, and fill the gaps and the voids where they don't have that ability to be able to do, while recognizing there's a generational gap as well. Because the senior leadership of an organization is not like a Dropbox where it's a 27-year-old individual that is one of the richest people on earth and has his own Lego room, conference room. Most businesses have gone through a lot of hard work, manual processes, have made lots of investments in technology that has and has not worked for them in the past. So, as we're going through this transition, what we see happening is that we have a new group of leaders that are emerging. And this isn't just the technical professional, this is the CEOs, the CFOs, the chief operating officers that are saying, we've got to be implicitly aligned with our mission, regardless of what the technology can or cannot do for us. That's the first and foremost thing. For us to be successful, every employee has to be aligned. And it gives us, IT guys, we have to eliminate the excuse of the individual sitting in the corner that has a specialty in network management but can't communicate worth of crap to the rest of the organization. And that we give him a pass or her a pass because that person has a technical skill. Those individuals' days are numbered because the movement out there is towards much more transparent and proactive communication and collaboration within organizations aligned around the company's mission. And then it comes around to embracing what the business objectives are. Jeffrey, I mean, I wish people would have made sure that everybody attended your presentation before attending this, because it lines up perfectly. Talk about the agility, the flexibility, the elasticity, cost reductions, alignment. What is it that we're going to do and make sure that everybody in the organization, including the person that may be the CEO, that is cleaning out the toilets at the end of the night because he doesn't have anybody else to do it. Or it could be the gardener that is out there, that is hired within it. And people go, well, that's his role. He knows how to do gardening, that's with it. No, it all stems back into what's the customer perception look like? What's your point of presence look like? That's with it. And it ties into your information technology professionals today as well. So, large enterprises, and we said earlier, the Stullers, the fence makers. I got news for you. Based off of the companies I've visited with, those are all mid-sized companies. If we're lucky. Large enterprises, Cox Communications, AT&T, Kaiser Permanente, they struggle so hard because how did most large Fortune 500 companies get to be large Fortune 500 companies? Bingo. So they've taken cultures, they've acquired cultures, and then when I acquire a company, what am I going to say? I'm going to say, when I acquire a company, I say, I'm going to let you operate how you are, do fear and intimidation, but ultimately it's going to get rolled up. Well, what happens is, see if I get my little pointer here to work. Okay. When we start a company, we have high agility and we have low cost. Right? We work out of a coffee shop in many instances. A lot of us do. We have great functionality, we have low complexity. Jeffrey again. Once you hire that second person, you've increased your complexity, you've increased your cost, you've probably decreased your agility. And over time, what happens is where most large enterprises are today, where the agility has decreased to the point where the cost is more expensive for them to be able to run their existing environments from a technology perspective and from a human capital perspective as well. So the adoption of cloud-based services by innovative leaders that started really a generation of probably 5 to 10 years ago by really early adopters that I would put myself inside of that category of, is now becoming much more mainstream. They're struggling though because whenever you have a change, you don't instantly reduce costs, you don't instantly reduce complications. You don't instantly get agility. In fact, you're going to double pay in a little bit. Now, if you're a startup company, you can start up very light, nimble, low expense to be able to get moving. But this enterprise-wide adoption right here is where the biggest challenge comes in for organizations. Over time, and it can be as little as 2 months, it can be as long as 5 years, depending on the organization, is when the organizations will start to see that benefit. Then you get this great debate. You know, you get all these nerds out there like me speaking up in front of guys and marketing guys and say, just build your own private cloud or rip out everything and you just have to get off of all that old stuff, get on to this new stuff. It just doesn't happen that way. You know, think about all of the things that you've accumulated inside of your life. There are going to be some things you want to keep, some things that you want to get rid of, and when companies are looking to make this transition, the bigger the companies that are out there, what they can't do is they just can't rip and replace. What they have to do is what's called a hybrid environment. So that means you're operating in two simultaneous worlds, and you're starting to make this transition as your data and as your applications and as your technology is moving towards this. This is probably where the greatest opportunity for innovators and entrepreneurs are today. It's about helping companies make that transition from a technical aspect as well as building solutions that will help companies make that transformation. So the other thing that leaders do, again, I'm just going to throw it right back to Jeffrey, is the proactive conversation here. You have to be communicating within the organization what your vision, what your plan, and what your strategy is that goes with it. I would say, as a recovering guy, one of the mistakes I made was I had a vision. I communicated it within information technology. I communicated it within the executives, but it was lip service. There wasn't buy-in across the entire enterprise from it. Individuals saw value that came from the conversations, but then there became amnesia when harder decisions had to be made within the organization. And so you have that vision, you have to talk to the IT teams that you're working with, and this isn't just the individuals that are working inside of the company, this is also the consultants out there. And I remember many conversations with consultants that they did not have the same vision that I had, which meant that we couldn't work together. Didn't mean that their vision was wrong, or didn't mean that my vision was wrong. It meant that we didn't have a shared vision, and because we didn't have that shared vision, we probably could not work towards the same common goals as we made a transformation. All the way to IT managers and system engineers, because as a leader and an innovator within an organization, if you don't communicate with the 3 or 4 people that you communicate with, then you're leaving it to chance on what's actually communicated to the next layer and then to the next layer. And I don't want to say the next layer down, because quite frankly, and from an IT perspective, these are the most important people that the company has. These are just the guys that can kind of herd the cats. So, and you help develop that strategy. But it goes beyond that, because the conversation has to start to drive around not just the strategy, but the plan, the value proposition, the results, measuring those results as you're going through that journey, and it has to be with all of your other lines of business, all of the individuals that are within information technology, the HR department. Why is the HR department so critical in this conversation? Change management? Hire the right people? Hold the people accountable? What happens when you start making changes within an organization?
Oh, resistance. Yeah.
So where do they go? HR. All right, start bringing the organization down. Your high performers are trying to pull your medium performers one way, your low performers are trying to pull them another way. You create conflict in an organization. What does HR hate? Absolutely despise conflict. Why? Because it's not healthy for the culture of a company. It's absolutely not healthy. So, and obviously your security and compliance, because you've got legal contracts, those type of things that go into play. From an innovator's perspective, so, because this audience is made up of a wide group of individuals. You may be selling solutions to a company, or you may be consulting with a company on their vision, their strategy, their tactics. If you're not having these type of conversations and helping them to recognize that they need to incorporate this into their day-to-day conversation, at the end of the day, there's going to be a good chance that they're going to become less effective in being able to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. Because for the most part, companies take and they put information technology out on an island all by itself. It kind of reminds me of the 1990s with a website. Oh, we have a website. Oh, is your advertising agency doing it? Oh, no, we have a website developer. Oh, okay. Is your website developer talking to, is that information flowing automatically into your business system? Oh, no, it's just gathering information and that goes to our sales department. Okay, so how do you measure the whole result? We can't keep this stuff as its own little island out there. It has to be an integral part of every day's conversation. So the other thing that comes into play is what I touched on earlier, and that is that there's a new generation, the next generation of workforce. So if you, has anybody tracked the Corporate Executive Board, CEB? Outstanding organization. So it's a think tank consulting group. They produce research documents. About 4 years ago, they produced what are the 10 skills for the next generation that you need to be looking for in the next generation workforce. And it's prioritization, teamwork, organizational alignment, organizational awareness, problem solving, self-awareness, proactivity, influence. You mean my garden used to have influence? My landscape guy used to have influence?
Yes.
Decision making, learning agility, technical expertise. So a lot of you look at this and they go, well, no, I probably have a person that does these things, and I have a person that does these things, and I have another person that does these things. That's not the new workforce. The new workforce, the individuals that have the ability to do all of these. Now, they may do something better than another, okay? And that's for you to balance out with your team assignments. And this part for me is what tells me that because of the new workforce needing to come in place and hiring, having technical experience, would any of us today hire an individual if they walked in and said, oh, I don't know how to use email? Probably not, right? Now, I don't mean that we can't put in place a program to help teach them how to use email as an onboarding process, those type of things, but it's a requirement for those individuals that are workforce. And it also means that the individuals that have the technical expertise for us today have to have teamwork and problem solving, which they're typically really good at. Self-awareness though, not so much so. Proactivity, influence, decision. As I said earlier, the more technical the individual is inside of an organization, we typically will give them a pass on the ability to be able to do some things. And in some instances, if I'm dealing with patient health information and I can hire and afford the best security expert out there that's there, and I know that he's going to keep all of that data safe for me, there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to give him a pass on a couple of things, unless he's tearing down the organization and being a what? This is terrorist. An internal terrorist. So, we should have done this presentation together. So then, the reality is that as we make this transformation, the hardest thing for any of us to do, and I'll put myself inside of this category, is to let go of the past. I mean, letting go is a very, very, very difficult thing. And from an organization that the way that companies typically think about technology and the way that they embrace that technology world is people, process, and technology. That would be the question that I would always ask within the organization. If I have the right processes, I can apply the right people. The technology usually isn't a problem because there's tons of technology that's available out there. The breakdown usually comes around people in the process, but we'll blame it on the technology because we had really crappy processes that people weren't following, whatever. Well, the reality is that those all give us that ability to be able to point fingers and give an illusion that the way things are working is because of one of these areas. The vision state is about everybody in the organization, including the IT professionals, being mission-focused, business-aligned, strategic, and dynamic in the way that they are thinking and the way that they are presenting information. Then I sit there and go, how the hell does this apply to cloud computing? Well, because for individuals to be able to do this, they have to give up something that they were doing in the past. They have to give up being able to manage the hardware that was out there. They have to take on new responsibilities. They have to be able to embrace this change to take place, and what it means is they have to, as they're letting go of this way of thinking, they're becoming more risk tolerant, more engaged. They know how to deliver solutions. They know what the core competencies are of the organization, and that it means that they're all individual contributors within the company, because now they're not focused on just a piece of hardware, the electricity and the HVAC that goes into it. They're focused on applying that technology to meet a business's needs. And the way that this comes into play around turning value to action or turning words into action is to take a simple formula that is, what's the value to the business? And how do you come up with it? What's the benefits minus the detriments? The detriments being the risk and the cost for the company, and the speed and the agility being the benefits. And you know what? If you take a business and you move them too fast, and they don't have the right people in place, or they don't have the right processes in place, or they don't have the right culture in place, all of those are risk that actually what ends up happening is you end up not driving any value. In fact, you could bankrupt the organization. So these aren't things that you just say, oh, we're going to go out and do. Now, if I'm a small business again and I'm making a transformation, your risk and your cost, the detriments are going to be a lot smaller than what an enterprise would be, because what you're going to get out of the benefits is the speed and the agility by leveraging kind of this charge towards cloud-based services. So this is kind of a recap of those areas. I've got a few minutes left, and then I'll turn into question and answer. Has anybody here seen Derek Cyber's video? Okay, very few. So I want to show that before we move into just a little bit of discussion here.
And how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course, you know, a leader needs the guts.
Hang on, guys. I'm going to do this just a different way real quick, because that is not the quality that I want you to see today. what happens when you don't test your stuff beforehand.
Every time.
What's that?
Every time.
Yeah. I love on-premise environments. So,
ladies and gentlemen, at TED we talked a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and the crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So, notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So, over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So, first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy who's first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, Ted. Thanks.
I love that video because I reflect on my life here in Lafayette so often, and actually so many people that are sitting inside of this room, that how many times each one of us as individuals can say that we were that lone nut out there. I still remember the day that I rode my bike from my house downtown to a meeting at LIDA in probably 99 or 2000, and everybody in the meeting said, "What the hell did you ride your bike here for?" Nobody rides bikes in Lafayette. What do you know? What's one of the highest priorities for Lafayette today? Biking and walking trails.
Yeah.
That didn't make me the leader that was inside. Frankly, it was because my car was broken down. I actually had a bike though, which was unusual in Lafayette at the time. So the reason why I showed that and why I believe that it is so valuable is because innovation, entrepreneurism, as a startup is extremely difficult. Innovation and entrepreneurism within a large enterprise is even harder. Because you're one of 1,000. by 10,000. So the reality is that each one of us have to dig back into ourselves, whether it's on cloud computing, whether it's on HR, whether it's on attorney, whether it's on consultant services, and we have to recognize that passion and enthusiasm is going to be is probably going to help us be successful in our next career choices and in our day-to-day actions. And I believe, for me, that's the core of what innovation is. So, and I have like 3 minutes left. If anybody has any questions or comments, I would welcome them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a little operation. We got 35 people. We're doing exactly what you talked about there. We're going from the legacy to where we go. How do I plot down on a small scale? You know, besides taking you lunch, which I'm going to offer to do.
You have to look at your options and your choices, and you have to ask the questions of the vendors in your case, because I know what you do. The confidentiality of the information, the legacy that goes in place, and what the disruption to the organization will look like as you make that transition that goes with it. The smaller the business, the easier it is to make that transition. If you are willing internally to recognize the way that you do things today are going to be slightly different than the way that you do things tomorrow, and that your internet becomes a mission critical aspect of your business as opposed to we can function without the internet. Short answer. Happy to.
From your experience, how do companies transition in managing a third-party vendor? Because I find that's the most, such a change and a difference.
The leadership within
account management, basically.
Yeah, the leadership within the organization. The reality is that I believe most companies will take third-party consultants and they will have them say, oh, you're only responsible for this slice of the pie, so I'm only going to give you a piece of information. The more that you can, if you're a business owner, bring those consultants in and have them be a part of that vision. And I would put competing vendors in the room together, and I would do I would do an executive briefing to all of the vendors on what my vision was, even in areas that didn't pertain to them, just so that they knew the other moving parts. Some companies don't like to do that because then they're dropping my drawers and showing you everything I've got type of thing.
Well, no, that you're bringing in a third party as part of your technology team, whether they be employed or outsourced.
I fully
part of the
agree.
team in the vision.
So as an outside consultant, the way to do that is to show the benefits that come from it and to show the results that you generated in the past by being engaged in those conversations and being willing to give something so that becomes a non-billable hour, those type of things to be involved in the
And
process.
that's what I'm seeing a change is your workforce is not just your employed workforce, it's your virtual workforce, business partners, third-party vendors, they're all part of your workforce.
So
and
that's
got to get those guys all working.
That's the new environment, is that there's less of a core. You don't have these large teams, you have more outsourced type of functions that are part of it. And that way you can hold them accountable and be able to swap out as innovation takes place. Other questions?
I find it challenging within our organization as our technology advances with all the different ages of employees and without age discrimination, allowing them training, but they have to keep up to speed. It's just so challenging.
I find it as I get older.
I mean, I'm one way to step up.
So the generational gaps is very real within
Yes.
organizations, and that's why process improvement, training departments, HR, alignment, all of those things come into play. And you can take a person that's been in a role doing the same thing for 30 years, all of a sudden that job changes, the role changes. If you don't put some type of change management program in place, then that individual is going to become a
Terrorist.
not intentionally though, right? Resistant to change. It's gonna terrorist.
Oh, picture.
Okay. Well, my time's up. Appreciate everybody coming today.